I've spoken a lot recently about asking listeners to review and rate this podcast on iTunes or whatever platform that they listen on. Basically, to keep the algorithm happy that helps new listeners discover this podcast. And what I've noticed over the last few years is that people that have built a strong following on a particular platform quickly find that they're playing on somebody else's playground and obeying by somebody else's rules. And remember a few years ago when people neglected their websites and ran off to set up their business on Facebook, until of course Facebook changed the rules and introduced a kind of pay to play if you really want to reach an audience. And I myself am all too familiar with this because I built a following on LinkedIn and had over 14,000 followers and had articles getting over 100,000 views on there. Until, of course, the algorithm changed and now those 14,000 followers don't even get a notification from me anymore. But of course, this isn't about me. I'm not alone here. I hear the same from people on Instagram and YouTube too. The problem is that these platforms are changing the rules, but they're also letting algorithms call the shots rather than their own community that actually makes the platform a success. But thankfully, there is an alternative. LBRY, the decentralized sharing platform, is actually run by the community. LBRY is ultimately a sharing platform that uses blockchain technology to enable users to publish material and get paid for doing so. And people using LBRY's service can also monetize their published material with its built-in payment system, which of course is not run by advertisers like the YouTube model. There's been so many YouTubers that have suddenly found that their content is not fit for an advertiser, so it disappears. That's why this new exciting concept really appeals to me, because it melds together the technical advantages of both Bitcoin and BitTorrent services for people looking just to share content. For example, for an upcoming project, LBRY is offering 200,000 LBC, which is their token, for developers to compete to launch their apps, projects and social platforms. And these competitive designs will allow for grant funding through the LBRY Foundation. And prior to this effort, LBRY has approved 21 projects and gave out close to 1 million LBC for musicians and for conferences to connect people in India and for video personalities as well as animators just to post their work. So in a digital world where we're all content creators now, I've got a feeling you're going to enjoy this one. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Boston so we can speak with Jeremy Kaufman, and he's the co-founder and CEO of LBRY, the decentralized open source digital media protocol on the blockchain. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Jeremy. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
I am Jeremy Kaufman, the CEO of LBRY. I have a background in computer science and entrepreneurship, but since the show isn't really about me and about LBRY, I'll tell you what LBRY is. So LBRY is a blockchain-based open source protocol that facilitates the discovery, distribution, and purchase of digital content. Now, that's a loaded sentence, so a much simpler way of explaining it is we've created a standard that makes services like YouTube or Amazon possible entirely via open source and in a way that doesn't have the same level of control that centralized platforms have, but still has that same great user experience.
Funnily enough, Forbes went a step further and they labelled LBRY as a decentralised YouTube. I mean, however, we'll have people listening both in and outside of the tech industry. Some will be familiar with blockchain and crypto and others won't. So can you just set the scene a little and tell me exactly what kind of problems you're aiming to solve with LBRY?
Sure. So, we're solving problems from two sides. One, there's a lot of problems with centralized platforms. They take here I'm talking about companies like YouTube, Apple, Amazon, even cable TV providers. These companies take anywhere from 30 to 55+% of the profits to move what is effectively a stream of bits, a movie, a song, whatever it is, from place A to place B. And level one, that's just kind of crazy. That's a lot of money to move bits around. I'm not saying what they do is easy, but it's a lot of it. They're taking a very large cut. And then there are also these problems of trust and censorship. These platforms change the rules on people at any time without warning. People build their businesses on top of these platforms, and they're building on top of quicksand. And then there are also problems of censorship. We don't always experience them in the U.S., although we experience them some. And people in other countries experience them a lot more, where these countries, are collaborating with governments in Turkey and China to deliver heavily censored versions of their platforms. So that's the problem with the sort of existing centralized platforms. I don't know if your audience is familiar with existing decentralized technology like BitTorrent. So BitTorrent has a couple of problems as well. There's a lot of dodgy stuff on there. It hasn't gotten legitimate traction, right? It's predominantly infringing content. There's also problems of discovery. So BitTorrent works great if you have a hash and BitTorrent's a wonderful technology, by the way. Technologically, it's brilliant. But the network works great if you have a hash, that unique value, that magnet link to enter the network. But there's no listing of what's available on it. There's no catalog. And a blockchain can solve that problem. And another thing that's a problem with BitTorrent is it kind of works just because people are nice. And I'm all for systems working because people are nice. I love Wikipedia. I give money every year. But if we can have incentives to do the right thing, I think that's a little better than just relying on that. And so we're kind of coming at it from two sides. We think there's a lot of problems with decentralized platforms. We also think existing decentralized tech has a couple of failure modes.
I love the line you used there about building a platform on quicksand, because it seems no matter where you build a following now, whether it be Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, you're playing on somebody else's playground and they can just change the rules at any moment, tweak the algorithm, and all of a sudden you're invisible, aren't you?
That's exactly right. And this has happened. We have tens of thousands of YouTubers who are now making their content available on LBRY, and a lot of them have suffered from this exact problem, whether it's demonetization or people coordinated DMCA strikes against them, or all kinds of crazy things. YouTube just changed the trending algorithms, and so they're not showing up anymore, or all kinds of things that happen where these people spend so much time and money building up their business, and the floor is pulled out from underneath it.
So if we do have any content creators or equally publishers listening, what are the biggest advantages for them using your platform, would you say?
So it's one that you're going to get, if you're selling your content, you're going to get 100% of the price that you choose. And that's a strong promise because this is a protocol, right? It's not something that we can change unilaterally. The other is trust. These same kinds of these same kinds of things that I was talking about, where we can't change the way that LBRY works without the permission of our users, and that's very powerful. To some extent, and I'll say honestly, I get in trouble with VCs or people on the business side when I talk about this sometimes, because I'll say that our competitive advantage to some extent is tying our own hands behind our back, but that's what we've done. We've taken away our ability to do things that other platforms can do.